So apparently I'm the kind of guy who thinks ignoring emails is the best strategy for building a team. So I hurt someone who was close to me, someone who trusted me because I was oblivious. Have you ever found yourself in a new place where nothing seems familiar? Well, I once ignored someone who was going through this exact issue. I've had the privilege of leading a lot of very diverse teams, and I myself am an immigrant. I came all the way from the United States to come to Norway to live and work. And in this process, I learned a lot about what not to do. I think a lot of us understand the need to feel valued, to feel seen, to feel heard. So why is it so easy to overlook the person that's right in front of us? As leaders, we cannot assume that someone will adapt without any support. We have to keep in communication even when all we want to do is disconnect. And we always need to see the human behind the role, especially in times of stress. Now, I know what you're probably thinking. Oh, it's too much to manage other people's emotions. That's not my job. And I totally get it. Leaders can be extremely busy, and a lot of us need time to have a break. But it's exactly those moments that understanding others matters most. Now, if you're like me, you need time to disconnect, to decompress, and to recharge your batteries. But what happens when those needs conflict with the needs of others? So there I am, the end of the year. I am thrilled to take a break from work, to disconnect, and to just be in the peace and solitude of my home. All the while, I am blissfully unaware of what Anita, my PhD student, is facing. Now, Norway in the winter is no joke, especially if you're like Anita and you come from a warm place like Costa Rica. So you can imagine her moving to Norway for the first time, trying to get her footing, trying to get stabilized. And she's reaching out to me, her supervisor, asking questions and asking for help. And I blow it off, make light of her concerns, and assume that, like me, she'll figure it out. It all came to a head when after New Year's, I sit down with Anita and realize the impact that I had made on her and her family's feelings of well-being and safety. But this isn't just about Anita. It's not about one person. It's about how we're treating others. It's about how we understand each other's cultures and roles. So Anita is the hero of this story. She's moving to Norway to pursue her personal dream, to create new knowledge, to use research and science to show the value of digital inclusion. And she very much saw her responsibilities as creating a pathway for future generations, including her children. And I am the absolute villain of this story because I was so fixated on my own needs that I couldn't see hers. And this experience taught me the value of seeing someone as a whole being. Now, the problem was Anita was struggling in her move to Norway. She was struggling to find a home. She was struggling to find schools for her children. And she was struggling with the most basic things, where to find food, where she could make the dishes that she was familiar with from her home. And you might think that the cause of that problem was simply that moving to another country is always challenging and difficult. But the actual cause to that problem was that I was having tunnel vision. I was so fixated on my vacation and taking time to recuperate that I missed the little chances I had to help Anita feel seen and feel heard. So the solution is not that I needed to cancel my vacation plans. The solution was that I needed to see the whole person behind Anita's experience. So you could imagine Anita's excitement when she had a chance to move to a new country with her family. You could imagine the determination and the grit it takes to get to that point in her career. And you could imagine her absolute thrill to be able to pursue an area of research that she believed in so strongly. But the struggle is real. Finding a place to live in Oslo is a huge, huge challenge, especially if you're moving from abroad. And Anita, like a lot of immigrants to Norway, felt very isolated that first winter that she lived here. And me dismissing her concerns impacted not only her mental health, but the health and safety of her family. But there's a bigger issue here. Norway, and especially Oslo, need talented professionals. I don't care if it's academia, industry, civil society, or government. We need people who are able to solve complex challenges and who create solutions to benefit all of society. So there I am in Vienna, sitting back on a cozy, easy chair in front of a fireplace, sipping a cup of mulled wine, while my inbox fills and fills and fills with messages from Anita asking for my help. There couldn't have been more of an extreme contrast between my quiet, peaceful, calm vacation in Vienna and her cold, challenging, and frustrating experience the first winter in Oslo. And Anita is one of the most driven people I've ever met in my life. She moved halfway across the world with her family and children to be able to pursue her dream. And she is absolutely resilient. She didn't move from the United States like me or some other country in the global north. She moved from Costa Rica. And I ignored her emails, not just once, but for weeks, until I finally returned from vacation in the first week of January. And my immigration experience was very different than Anita's. My biggest concern moving to Norway to do research for the European Union was simply whether or not I could wing it walking on the icy sidewalks in Oslo. Spoiler alert, I failed miserably. So you could imagine me trying to walk to work through the ice and snow, and I see an elderly Norwegian woman trying to cross the road. And I hurry over to her to offer my arm to help her across the street. And before I even get to her, I slip and fall and lay there horizontally on the ground. She slowly walks up to me and asks me if I need help getting up. Humiliation was real. The reality was, though, that year I was so fixated on my vacation plans that I didn't even realize I was playing the villain in Anita's story. And if I had just paused, listened, tried to understand Anita's experience, it could have changed everything for her. I needed to see the spectrum of Anita's experience. So for you and your teams, you have to see the spectrum of the human experience. You have to be able to understand where people are coming from and not just their roles and responsibilities. So how can you ensure that you're seeing the whole person on your team?